around and waiting for instruction from team crew standing just at the front of the car, as is replicated right the way down the pit lane. It's a very colourful scene that we see here at Silverstone. It's a long pit lane, it's a wide pit lane, and the cars and their liveries have got space to breathe here at Silverstone. It looks absolutely spectacular. Standing by, what are we, 12:05. Word is set for Colin Turkington, Adam Morgan, Stephen Jelly will be next, then the laser beamer, as Jake likes to call it. Top of the times in FP1. It leaves Ash Sutton behind, Dan Camish behind, Dan Rowbottom next, Sam Osborne in this one-off livery, the Valvoline livery on the Ford Focus. Then the reigning champion, Tom Ingram, Tom Chilton, Nick Halstead, and Ronan Pearson will be next. Going very well in FP1, the young driver in his first year of competing in the BTCC. The Toyotas are next, and that clears the first half of pit lane, and then we start on the second half. So cars out on circuit now for FP2.
Brilliant stuff. Yep, so we'll hear the noise of the cars working their way around very shortly. A few of those will continue on the circuit. Others will possibly decide to head into the pit lane to continue a few changes just to make sure they get everything up to temperature and make sure those tyres are at good temperature as well to get the times in as best as they possibly can. So off they all go. I think everyone now pretty much has got themselves towards the end of the pit lane. Just a few of the Coopers to head out, and then we'll have a full complement of 27 cars out there on circuit. So we talked to you about the main championship, the top three, how it looks between Ash Sutton, Tom Ingram and Jake Hill. Very close, we have to say, within the Manufacturers and Constructors Championship coming here this weekend, because there are just 10 points which separate BMW from the Motorbase Performance Ford's team as well in second place. So 658 plays 648. That very close indeed. And we also have the Independence Trophy, another championship to keep an eye on for this weekend. Josh Cook on 385 points. He's had 12 independent wins so far this year, by far the most of any of the other contenders within that championship, and he comes here now with a 92-point lead over Aaron Taylor-Smith, three-time winner within the independents, and then Andrew Watson and Aidan Moffat third and fourth with 2 wins apiece for them as well. So that's how things look in the Independence Trophy, but we'll be focusing all of our eyes, as we said, on the main championship here this weekend, with 62 points covering the top three. The word on the street is that Ash Sutton needs to extend his advantage by a further 26 points here at Silverstone this weekend to move to an unassailable lead by the time we go to Brands Hatch. But we'll see how, as we said, all that plays out tomorrow. And with the information we gave you earlier, Ash Sutton has never won around Silverstone. So good news for the likes of Tom Ingram and Jake Hill, who are on the charge to try and close him down. Tom Ingram with those 6 wins. Jake Hill has also had 2 wins here at Silverstone as well. So Ash Sutton has some work to do, but he'll be trying to add to his 36 win tally that he's had within the British Touring Car Championship. And talking of Ash Sutton, straight back into the pit lane, he does come within that Napa Racing Ford Focus, joined by his teammate Dan Camish, who is again looking for a solid weekend after the disappointments at Donington Park last time out. Unfortunately, Dan has already gone further than he did that weekend a few weeks ago, because he was out in free practice number 1, and that's all he managed to do across the course of the weekend. So he's lost a huge amount of points to his championship kind of rivals around him. But it's going to be a positive weekend for Dan Camish to try and get him back in the hunt as best as he possibly can. So they are the stories coming out of Donington Park. Also, we'd like to welcome back Bobby Thompson, who returns to the driving seat this weekend with the Go Fix with Auto Aid Breakdown. He'll be racing that Cupra Leon with Jack Boutel as his teammate. So wonderful to have Bobby Thompson back. He did the first few rounds of the season. In fact, the first half of the season he did. He left after the summer break and hasn't been back since, but he's now in for this weekend and also his home event at Brands Hatch in a couple of weeks' time. So Bobby Thompson, the 2022 Jack Steers Trophy champion, back in the seat for this weekend as well. And we'll see how he gets on after finishing what was a little bit down the order in free practice number 1, 20th place. But again, we'll see if they do anything different this time to try and jump that car up the order. So Jake Hill is the first car to go through with the quickest time, and not quite where we were from earlier on with a 57.6, but already Jake in his rocket ship, his laser machine, working his way through with a 59.677. So he is quickest. Colin Turkington following in suit with a 59.881. And then their teammate, Adam Morgan, is right there as well in third place. The only other car to set a representable time so far is Michael Crease. So Michael continues out there on circuit. Into the pit lane with that wonderful Valvoline livery is Sam Osborne. So he now pulls himself into the garage, and again a quicker change on that car before he heads his way back out as well.
Is it fair to say that Valvoline is an iconic livery? It is, isn't it?
Massively, yes.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I just don't like overusing the word iconic, because then you lose the gravitas of when something is truly iconic. But yeah, it is.
I would say that, yeah, definitely an iconic livery that many will know here this weekend, whether they love motorsport or not. I'm sure they'll recognise that livery from somewhere back in the day, yeah, but very iconic indeed, that one. Great to have it on board Sam Osborne's car for this weekend. As the pace now starts to pick up, you will also notice, if you are new to touring cars, there will see a blue flashing light on some of these cars. Well, that is the hybrid deployment that we have for these free practice sessions. You are allowed to use it as much as you want. By the time we get to qualifying a little bit later on this afternoon, we have different drivers with different amounts to be used during that qualifying lap. So that all is, of course, dependent on where you sit within the championship. So we'll give you the details of that once qualifying gets underway. Of course, that's going to be different for tomorrow as well in terms of the number of laps you can use that hybrid across the course of the races, and you're allowed to use it at different deployment speeds as well. So for now, you'll see that blue light flashing at certain points around the circuit, mainly on the straights, just to give them a little bit more power, but that is what the blue light means. Alongside the driver's name towards the rear of the car, and we can tell you that Colin Turkington is currently on it, Dan Camish is currently on it around the circuit, and Mikey Doble is pushing on as well, using that hybrid around the circuit. In fact, he just comes off it because he's now into the pit lane. So Mikey Doble, who ended free practice number 1 in fourth position, again looking for a good run in free practice number 2, which hopefully will set him up nicely for qualifying later on this afternoon. But Mikey, so far this season, yet to visit the podium, but he's had some good solid results across the course of the year. He's had a top 5 finish at Donington Park. He got himself an 8th place finish as well at Thruxton, and then he's continued that with another top 10 finish at round number 19, where when he took part in race number 1 at Knock Hill, he got himself into the top 10 as well. So some good results from Mikey on his debut season within the British Touring Car Championship. Finds himself just outside the top 20 of the championship, but not too far from Bobby Thompson, from Ronan Pearson, from Sam Osborne, from George Gamble. There's about 5 points which separate those 5 cars within the championship. So a good weekend here, as we said, can really jump you up the order. It might be quite spread out in terms of the top 3 places, but lower down there's some real good places to be gained if you get a good top 10 finish. And of course, points go all the way down to 15th place after tomorrow's first race, and of course that continues through race 2 and race 3 as well. Jake Hill has continued to go quicker. He is still the fastest out there on circuit with just under 27 minutes to go. He's done 57.805, so we are still a couple of tenths away from what we saw this morning, but again with more rubber now being laid down by the drivers out there on circuit, and with the temperature of the track just kind of fluctuating at the same
dropping a bit.
Well,
I would say
so,
a bit of cloud cover now.
That's what I was thinking. The cloud cover is just making it kind of not rise any further than what we possibly would have had this morning. So yeah, cloud cover more abundant this afternoon as we head our way through this session. But the BMW is doing well. First and second as it stands, 57.8 plays a 57.9. Change that because Dan Camish is back to where he belongs. Second place now as he goes through to complete that lap with 57.924.
Said it before, I really want Dan to have a good weekend. I know a lot of people will as well. They were pretty much united behind Dan after that very, very heavy bash in FP1 at Donington Park, and memories of when last year the season started at Donington Park with quite a serious fire in the car, which put paid to the end of his Saturday. So a horrible start to the season last year at Donington Park, and then a horrible start to the second time we've been there this year, just 3 weeks ago. So people will be willing Dan on to have a good weekend this weekend, that's for sure. He needs a bit of a change of luck.
Certainly does, yeah. I'd probably say Donington's a plague circuit for Dan, but he started the season well this year.
The problem is, when you start thinking that way, then you can kind of almost force it to become that. You can't have that mindset, can you? It's so easy to fall into.
Exactly, but he did take 2 wins there earlier this season at the beginning of the year, so that was a really good result. It's just the shame about the Grand Prix circuit.
Started the season more spectacularly than I think he thought he would.
Indeed he did, yeah. So Dan Camish is 5th within the championship. He's trying his best to hold on to that ahead of Josh Cook, who's not too far behind him. Just 9 points separate those two. So I'm sure they're going to have a great ding-dong battle right towards the end of the year to try and keep themselves within the side of the top 5 of the championship order. As Dan Lloyd flies his way back into the pit lane, just as he gets to the pit lane speed, he slows that thing down. And Dan Lloyd at the minute inside the top 15. So fairly good start to the session for Dan this time round. So he's going to try and move that Cupra up higher than he went this morning. 17th place from free practice number 1, but no change at the top of the order between Jake Hill, Dan Camish and Colin Turkington. Rory Butcher, now this is what we're looking to see from Rory. As I said, not quite there this morning, but as we know, they're probably trying different things compared to others who are going for a quicker setup. But now all of a sudden, Rory Butcher has found himself a little bit higher up and probably where we normally like to see Rory, and especially here at Silverstone, because he's gone really well in previous seasons. So this is a circuit that not just suits Rory Butcher, but also suits that car as well, because Ricky Collard made that point this morning with his 7th place in free practice number 1. So Rory's up there. Ricky's still got a little bit of work to do. Currently finds himself down in 12th place in his number 37 Toyota Gazoo Racing UK machine, which is still out there on circuit and has just in fact jumped himself up from 23rd. So all of a sudden Ricky Collard now starting to get into his stride as well. Ash Sutton is doing the same thing. He's just gone through just ahead of Ricky Collard into 12th position. So that's where they find themselves at the minute. And all of a sudden, Ronan Pearson, who we saw up there in the top 5 this morning, is now inside the top 6, I should say, because he's gone through and done a 58.143. So Ronan Pearson, again, looking good in free practice number 2. Being chased hard, actually, at the minute by Mikey Doble. So both of those that we saw up there this morning, again, looking to do exactly the same this time round. And Ronan Pearson, best finish for him so far this year has been, quite recently actually, the rounds we had at Knock Hill, where he finished inside the top 5 on 2 occasions. 5th place in race 1, 4th place in race number 3, and in the middle of those races we had a 7th place finish at Knock Hill. So Ronan Pearson, by far his best weekend of the season up in Scotland. Of course, his home circuit, so he knows it very well, and why wouldn't he go well on home turf? But apart from that, I think his other best weekend of the year was actually last time out at Donington Park, where he got 3 point scoring finishes with 2 14th places and a 15th place in race number 3. So it's not just Knock Hill which has been a positive result, it's kind of these last 6 races which have really spurred Ronan on, and I think that's why he's running well here this weekend so far in these 2 free practice sessions, because he's got that bit of a bug that when you get to the end of the season, things start working well and you kind of get that momentum, and unfortunately the season is coming to a close, but it's nice that Ronan is going to hopefully end the year on a high for himself as he goes through that time, stays within the top 8, but we did just see a quickest sector time there which flashed up on the screen, so let's see if that now holds. I think that was Aaron Taylor-Smith through the first sector, which now puts him 6th within the order. So he's gone from 25th to 6th. So his first flying lap of the session now sees him move up considerably within the order, just ahead of the 2022 champion Tom Ingram. So 6th and 7th they currently sit. Ronan Pearson still down there in 8th place. Stephen Jelly, who's in the pit lane in the BMW, is currently in 9th. And then to round out your top 10 was Mikey Doble, but he completes that lap and now goes into 6th position. So again, the Vauxhall Astra, not just in the hands of Mikey Doble, but also in the hands of Aaron Taylor-Smith, finding themselves now inside the top 10. And to add to that, their teammate, Andrew Watson, is in 8th position as well. So 3 of the Vauxhall Astras, all of them, inside the top 10 so far within this session. Just over 20 minutes remaining. We've got a couple of the BMWs back into the pit lane as well, although Stephen Jelly, Colin Turkington, so Stephen Jelly's in the pit lane, isn't he? Adam Morgan is a little bit further down the order as well. He's in 16th place, but he's still out there. So Stephen Jelly is in the pits. Jake Hill is now in the pit lane and about to head back to his garage after a quick run through the technical check area for Jake Hill. And Aaron Taylor-Smith has furthered his lap time to go even quicker and now find himself just 20 thousandths back from Jake Hill. So Aaron Taylor-Smith in the Vauxhall Astra takes himself now up into second position. So we have to reiterate, this is a free practice session, but this is good knowledge to have and possible form which could be taken through to qualifying this afternoon. And of course, a little bit different again this weekend because the qualifying session will be in two parts. So the first part is to try and secure yourself inside the top 10. The second part will then try and to shape the order to see where you line up on the grid with inside that top 10 if you've made it through. If you haven't, then you're going to be starting where you qualify within that first part later on today. So lots to play out for a little bit later. And we've had identical first sector times for both Aaron Taylor-Smith and now Andrew Watson. So the same car, teammates, doing exactly the same sector time through the first sector on this lap. So are either of them going to improve? Aaron Taylor-Smith about to come to the line. He cuts a big chunk of woodcut off there, almost right up against the Armco barrier, but he goes through and he does improve with a 57.823, which is 2 thousandths quicker than what he had previously done. And for Andrew Watson, he crosses the line to do a 59.5, which is about a second and a half slower than what he had done on his quickest lap. So he does the best of anyone through sector 1, but just dropped off through sector 2 and sector 3 on that lap. Colin Turkington also improved. He goes from 4th to 3rd in car number 4 with a 57.908. So by far at the minute, the BMWs and the Vauxhall Astras looking good here at Silverstone. But as we said, they've got to try and carry that through the rest of the day into qualifying a little bit later, as now Nick Halstead goes across the line, followed by Adam Morgan and Dan Lloyd. Do either of those improve behind Nick Halstead? No, they don't. Nick Halstead did improve up to 24th place, along with Dexter Patterson, who moved his way up into 23rd as well. I think Aaron Taylor-Smith had quite a bit of fun out there so far within this session, so he now decides to bring that car into the pits. His teammate Andrew Watson is going to come in as well, and Mikey Day will come in on this lap also, but he stayed out for the time being as we head towards the halfway stage of the session. George Gamble in as well. BMW to Toyota for this year.
Aaron Taylor-Smith this year has had spectacular Saturdays.
Yeah, and to be fair, his results haven't been too shabby either, have they?
Really, really good. We have the Irish national anthem very much on standby this year.
Well, you had to play it last time out, didn't you, at Donington? I know he didn't because he finished second, but
it was close. It was a close run thing.
It was indeed, yeah. So we played the national anthem for the winning driver. So second it was at Donington for Aaron Taylor-Smith. So yeah, he's on that cusp of getting that win, isn't he? Is Aaron Taylor-Smith. So second at Donington. Prior to that, his best results of the season had come with the 4th place at Knockhill. 6th place he took at race 1 on the Grand Prix circuit at Donington as well. So yeah, bit by bit he made his way closer to the podium. Finally that got broken at Donington Park, and now he's kind of just standing there waiting to go, waiting to jump onto that top step. And yeah, with the form he's shown so far today, we wouldn't put it past him this weekend, because that Vauxhall Astra, the kind of hatchback car around Silverstone, seems to work well, whether it be the Toyota or the Vauxhall Astra. Both of them showing form so far today.
The Astra has been good from the second part of the season. The first part of the season maybe not quite as much as they would have liked, but certainly the second part of the year it's been really a bit of a corker, that car.
Yeah, it certainly has. Mikey Doble, of course, in the top 10 in the second half of the season. He got that 5th place at Donington to start the year, but yeah, definitely on form for him. Andrew Watson got that good result at Donington to start the year, but for him, the second half of the season, as you said, has been the best, with a 2nd place finish at Knockhill as well. And Aaron Taylor-Smith, again, didn't do too bad to start the season. He had a couple of non-finishes, unfortunately, but that 2nd and the 4th and the 6th he's had in the last 5 races have really been good for the Vauxhall Astra team. So on home soil this weekend, as we said, for them. So looking for good results with 3 drivers, with Aaron Taylor-Smith so far being the quickest in this session in 2nd place. Mikey Doble up to 6th place now, and Andrew Watson still sits there in 8th position. So just under 16 minutes to go. Jake Hill still the quickest, 57.805. So could it be a double practice top spot for Jake Hill at the end of this one? Well, time will tell. as some of the other quick runners in terms of the championship now start to get up to speed. Tom Ingram, he is currently down in 11th position. Tom has only completed 10 laps though, so that's the lowest amount we've seen so far from all of the drivers out there. And Ash Sutton has done 13 laps and finds himself in 15th place. So just wondering what they're going through in the Napa Racing team at the minute, but going through a few different processes of trying to make Ash Sutton a little bit quicker, or possibly trying some race strategies out on that car. But at the minute, not quite the speed we're used to from Ash Sutton, but I'm sure he'll delve into a quicker lap towards the end of this session. And then the other one, in terms of the championship, Colin Turkington finds himself currently in third place as Dan Rowbottom roars his way back into the pit lane down there. 7th place at the minute for the number 32 machine. We've had more do a lap in terms of quick laps than we had in free practice number 1. So I think everyone now has recorded a good lap. Michael Crease down in 27th place, Jade Edwards 26th, and Daryl De Leon, who has joined the championship later on this season. He joined us for the 16th round onwards, so that was from Croft, the second half of the season effectively, when we got back underway after the first half, and Daryl De Leon has been in that car ever since. So far for him this year, his best result has been an 18th place finish. That came on his first weekend at Croft in race number 3, but unfortunately Daryl has also been plagued by non-finishers. He had 2 at Knock Hill, he had 2 at Donington Park as well, so looking again for a good possible point scoring finish for Daryl De Leon. Those Coopers pushing on hard. Had a few different drivers this year. We've had Rob Huff, of course, in the car. He was rumoured to be back for this weekend, I believe, but whether we'll see him for the rest of the season, I'm not too sure now. But great to have Rob back for that weekend at Knock Hill, where he got a best finish of 13th. In fact, 2 races inside the points. The third race was a non-finisher for the former British touring car star, Rob Huff, who's been away doing world touring cars for quite a few seasons now, but great to have him back, as we said a few meetings ago. Just had an improvement there for Adam Morgan in the team BMW, so he did that quick lap and has now decided to come into the pit lane. So Adam Morgan jumps up into 6th position. Any more quick times looking to come through? Well, it looks like Tom Ingram, before he came into the pit lane, was on a quick lap, but still finds himself down in 11th place. And we're getting a few black flags through the session once again for the number 6 machine. That's Rory Butcher, and also 96 Jack Boutel just received a black flag. In fact, black flag for 96, a black and white flag it was for Rory Butcher. So my apologies. He just being warned about track limits around the circuit as the sun pops out once again. So that just affects the track conditions and the temperatures, which continue to rise as a plethora of cars now head their way back into the pit lane. So again, we're at that stage of the session now where we're halfway, maybe a new set of tyres about to be put onto some of these cars to see if they can eke out a few quicker lap times. Of course, they're not imperative to get out of this session, but they just want to see what they have up against qualifying a little bit later on. Colin Turkington to complete another lap, this time through. He does a 58.3, so not too far off his quickest, a 57.9, but still needs to go 0.4 of a second quicker to see if he can equal that of Jake Hill, who's still quickest, but we're still a couple of tenths down on what we saw this morning from Jake in that number 24 machine, who's back out there on circuit once again, so he continues to push on. There goes Tom Ingram, also back out on the circuit as well, the 2022 touring car champion. Could it be another one this year for Tom? 42 points adrift of Ash Sutton. And of course, with still 120 points plus on offer for the 6 races we have for this year. There's still lots to play out between him, Ash Sutton, Jake Hill, Colin Turkington, who's just shy of 100 points adrift of Ash Sutton, so he's got an outside shot, I believe, but it's going to have to be some for Colin to claw his way back into title contention here this weekend as he completes another lap, 58.2, so again, still a few tenths off where he needs to be, but good to see the BMWs running 1st, 3rd, 6th and 10th with Stephen Jelly, so in fact all 4 Team BMW cars inside the top 10 at the minute. Rory Butcher, who is inside the top 5, just decides to go into the technical check area. So again, just making sure everything is okay with that car. And then Ronan Pearson follows him in as well. 11th place for Ronan Pearson after what was second this morning in free practice number 1. So Ronan just starting to go the other way now. So again, maybe a few more changes there on that car just to try and bring it back to where it was earlier in the day. Daryl De Leon across the line, 25th for now. That lap time is an out lap for Daryl, so now should potentially be on to another quick lap, as we've received another black flag, this time for Stephen Jelly in the number 12 machine, so he will have to work his way into the pit lane before too much longer. Who else this year then has taken race wins? Well, Tom Chilton, of course, apart from those in the top 4 of the championship. Tom Chilton was a race winner at the second race of the season in terms of Donington Park. He picked up the victory there in what were the challenging conditions, one of the best races of the year so far, with the changing conditions and making sure you got the right tyre call at the right time. Also, Rory Butcher got his first win of the year at the last race we had, actually, Donington Park race number 3. Rory Butcher picking up the race victory there. Dan Rowbottom has been a winner this year as well. He picked up the third race win from Thruxton. So Dan Rowbottom has been a winner this year. And Dan Camis is also inside the championship positions, being a 3-time race winner. Those 2 wins that we said kicked off the season at Donington. And he also picked up the race 1 win from Croft, North Yorkshire, back earlier in the season. But apart from those winners, the top 4 in the championship have taken the majority of the wins so far this year. 3 have gone the way of Colin Turkington. Jake Hill has taken 4 race wins. Tom Ingram has taken 2. And Ash Sutton has picked up, across the course of this year, 9 race wins. So by far, the most has gone the way of our championship leader. Could he possibly get into double figures this weekend? As we keep saying, yet to be a winner at Silverstone is Ash Sutton. So can he change his fortunes this weekend? A lot of people saying that they'll want to try and keep him off the top step for yet another time this year. But yeah, Silverstone has not been a happy hunting ground for the 3-time champion Ash Sutton in recent years. For the 1-time champion Tom Ingram, it has been a very happy hunting ground with 6 victories here at this circuit. And Colin Turkington, who is the 4-time touring car champion, he has taken just the 2 wins at this circuit in recent years. So that's how the form book looks. Colin Turkington with just under 9 minutes to go back into the pit lane. And Aaron Taylor-Smith has now gone to the top of the time. So the Vauxhall Astra, we said, one to watch out for this weekend for a race win.
He has good Saturdays, I said.
You did indeed. You said that correctly, Al. Yeah, so good Saturdays don't always transpire to good Sundays. But if you have day 1, which seems to be a positive, that gives you a positivity to carry over into Sunday as well. So
he's been the most positive guy in the world this year. He's become a dad. He's got little Oakley, his daughter here, who is with mum, Lauren, looking out into everything that's going on. She's, I don't know how old she is 4 months, 5 months old now, and her eyes are everywhere. She's taking in everything that's around her. And Aaron said on Autoclimped in Top Tuesday a few weeks ago, he said, yeah, she's changed my life. I love her almost as much as I love my dog. So, which is
nice.
It's so Aaron has become a dad this year. Ash Sutton has become a dad this year, and it suits both of them very, very well.
Yeah, it gives you that different aspect on life, doesn't it? I'm sure, where you get a child in your life and everything else doesn't really matter. But it also turns your life around in terms of your racing career, because the likes of Ash Sutton, who we know is kind of still a bit nervous and how things might play out this weekend, but there's still a bit of a calm around him at times.
In an interview on Radio Silverstone many years ago, probably 20 years ago, sat on top of the Ferrari hospitality area, Gary Champion from Radio Silverstone did an interview with Michael Schumacher, and Michael said that he thought since becoming a dad it had cost him 1/10 of a second a lap, that he was slower since he became a dad. Now, the kind of thing that I hear from Ash Sutton and Aaron Taylor-Smith is that it's made them quicker, because they want to do things that that a new part of their family in later years are going to be proud of. So interesting, isn't it? 20 years ago, Michael reckons it makes you slower. Now, makes you quicker.
And that's one thing, actually, when I was watching the coverage at home on ITV over the last few rounds, when they've talked to Aaron Taylor-Smith, that's all he's kind of said, isn't it? He's said he wants to have memories that his daughter or his children can look back on and go, that was my dad.
Colin Turkington has said this for years, because since his boys were tiny, 2 boys, Adam and Lewis, and his wife Louise, they have been coming to these meetings, so they have seen multiple titles go the way of their dad over the years. And Colin once said at the end of season awards dinner, what we're doing is making family memories. That's what we're doing. They all go in a photo album, and that was that year. That was the year when Lewis was 7 years old, for example, but they're making memories to look back on.
Certainly are, and now he's starting his racing career, I believe, with more money being spent by
Yes,
Dad.
Yes, indeed.
So 5 minutes to go within this session. Aaron Taylor-Smith, as we said, gone to the top of the times in this free practice session, 57.732. So we're still away from what we did this morning, and we're still away from the qualifying time, which was set by Dan Camish back in 2020 of a 57.349. But all good knowledge and good practice and good data to be taken away from this session before we get to the all-important qualifying session a little bit later on. Jake Hill now, of course, down to second, and Tom Ingram is the other one who's jumped up across the course of the last few minutes. So Tom Ingram goes up to third place with a 57.825. And I think Tom Ingram will be hoping for a weekend similar to what he had back in 2017, where he enjoyed his highest ever point-scoring weekend in the BTCC with a 52-point haul after races 1, where he won, and a race 2 podium. Opposed to what was that weekend, Colin Turkington, who had 28-point grab from those 2 races. So, yeah, Ingram is going to be looking way back to 6 or so years ago, 2017, where he had a massive 52-point haul after the first 2 races of the weekend.
So the question here, Matt, is with 4 minutes just over of FP2 remaining, do we begin to worry at this stage about Ash Sutton? Because he's down the order, isn't he? And I think the answer to this is no, because so many times we see in free practice, we don't know what they're doing. They're doing all sorts of different things. They're doing housekeeping, they're doing this, they're doing that. But then when it comes to qualifying in the afternoon, the magic turns on, and we've seen it before. We saw it over many years with team dynamics. We don't worry too much about what happens in free practice. However, it's unusual, isn't it, to see Ash down there?
Well, this is the first Saturday I've done with you this year, Alan. So I always listen to you and you say, don't worry about free practices because they're all testing things out and they all appear at qualifying. But yeah, there might be something not to worry about. But if they haven't got the setup right for qualifying at this point, then they're going into qualifying a little bit blind, aren't they?
So the only reason that I mentioned that was I did see Ash and I mentioned it as well, Ollie Collins and Pete Osborne. Ollie is the team manager and Pete is the team owner, sort of huddled around the TSL timing screen in the garage after FP1 for some time, and I don't know the nature of the conversation, I wasn't party to it, but it's just interesting. Maybe they haven't just found the sweet spot for this circuit.
Yeah, it might be a little bit concerning considering he was 6th in free practice number 1. So it's a big difference, isn't it, from 6th to 21st.
And that's the bit that would suggest to me that they are doing housekeeping in FP2 that would suggest that we've got nothing to worry about.
Yes, we'll go with that one for now, and we'll see how that all turns out in qualifying later on. But he's done a fair amount of laps, actually, 20 laps as Ash Sutton. So, yeah, just going through the process of possibly a race mode or just trying different things out for this session, knowing that they've done everything they could in free practice number 1 that they were happy with, and that's how the car may go into qualifying. So, yeah, we won't dwell too much on that, but Alan's absolutely right. Just kind of keep a note of where Ash is, 21st place within this session, and we'll see what that transpires to for qualifying a little bit later on. But we are heading...
I mean, if that transposes to qualifying, then that is an absolute gift, as Ash himself comes down to pit lane now, he's about to rejoin. That would be a gift of a sense of possibility for Tom Ingram.
Exactly. That's the sniff they need this weekend, just to try and keep themselves optimistic and positive, and knowing that they still have a chance of possibly overhauling this 42-point gap, which it is between Ash and Tom. And then, of course, a further 20 points back from that is Jake Hill. But Jake Hill, so far today, has impressed with first in free practice number 1, and as it stands, a second in this free practice number 2. So they look good, don't they?
Trouble for everyone else when Jake Hill has a good weekend. He wins race 1, he wins race 2, and then looks as if he might do the triple. Only been done twice before. Dan Eves, Jason Plato, they're the only ones that have won 3 races in one day. But Jake has come oh so close twice this year.
Yeah, certainly hasn't. They've kind of said the same about Ash Sutton, because he's done that on 2 occasions this year. He's won race 1 and race 2, hasn't he?
It's incredible, isn't it?
Certainly is, yeah. So still lots to play out, as we said, this weekend. 30 seconds left on the clock. So there's a few that have decided to head for the pit lane, which means their session is now done, and the cars they've got are pretty much the cars they'll have for qualifying a little bit later on. Good improvement there, though, towards the end. Mikey Doble, so continues to get himself and keep himself inside the top 10 for now. So Mikey does a 57.950, which means not quite all of the Vauxhall Astras are still in the top 10, because Andrew Watson has now just dropped down into 11th position. But with Aaron Taylor-Smith at the head of the order, I think they'll be pretty delighted with that, with his 57.732. And with the checker flag now out, Mikey Day will be the first man to cross the line and take the checkered flag, with Colin Turkington into the pit lane, Dan Rowbottom, Rory Butcher and Sam Osborne now to take the flag, and then the rest of them will come through just to finish that lap or drop into the pit lane. But that does bring our second free practice session to a close as Andrew Watson flies through. He's on the good lap, and Andrew Watson goes to the top of the times at the end of free practice number 2. I just picked up the first sector, which went purple, and I was trying to look for where he was, and he flashed through in front of me, and he goes through and does the quickest of everyone, which means it's going to be a Vauxhall Astra 1-2 for Power Max Racing. So they're on form this weekend so far. Let's see again how that transpires for both of them a little bit later on. I'm sure Aaron Taylor-Smith will be a little bit upset that his teammates have gone through to beat him.
Yeah. Doing this podcast yesterday, the Barking Mad podcast, and talking to Andrew Watson and Mikey Doble, I made the point, you three seem to be the most laid back, cool, chilled out people that all seem to get on. He said, yeah, I can't lie, we all get on really well. We share every single bit of data. Bear in mind that Mikey Doble and Andrew Watson, although teammates, are pretty close together in the Jack Sears Trophy. There are very, very few points between the two of them in first and second places in the Jack Sears. So they are extreme rivals out on circuit. But everyone in the team, driver-wise, they all get on really well.
Certainly do, yeah. So a great camaraderie amongst the team, and when a team gets on, you all work well together, don't you, as well? So that is good to see, and to see them both at the top of the times is absolutely fantastic.
All the team members, you can see them going over towards the pit wall now to watch practice starts taking place at the end of this, as Stephen Jelly in his BMW is encouraged away from the flat patch, the technical check area down here in pit lane. So some cars electing to come into pit lane, most of them taking the practice starts.
They will indeed, yep. So practice starts now underway. That is their only practice they have for today, because it will then be on to qualifying for them to, of course, set their place on the grid for the first of their races tomorrow for what's going to be rounds 25, 26 and 27 of the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship this weekend at Silverstone. So let's run you through the practice times of session 2 for the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. And Andrew Watson, on his very last lap, sets the quickest time with a 57.633. Did it by almost a tenth of a second, so not just kind of by a few thousandths, but by a whole tenth of a second between him and his teammate number 40 Aaron Taylor-Smith, who did a 57.732. Third place then for number 1, last year's champion and looking to steal a march on Ash Sutton this weekend, Tom Ingram with a 57.765. Fourth place for number 24 is going to be Jake Hill. He is off the quickest time in free practice number 1, then drops to 4th, but still good pace so far from Jake, and we'll we'll see how he grabs the march in qualifying a little bit later on, 57.805. Fifth place then for number 14 is going to be Ronan Pearson, 57.822 through that second free practice session. And sixth place, number 4, Colin Turkington on a 57.908. Mikey Doble makes it 3 of the